Hello and welcome. Look, if you've ever really wanted to get your head around precious metals, not just the headlines, but the whole system, from long-term investing to the fast-paced world of trading, then you are in exactly the right place. We're going to break it all down.
All right, let's jump right in. Here's the game plan for today. We're going to start with the absolute fundamentals. Then we'll pull back the curtain on how pricing really works. After that, we'll look at your options and finally help you figure out which path makes sense for you.
But first, I want you to think about this for a second. What is the real price of gold? I'm telling you, that number you see scrolling at the bottom of the news is just the tip of the iceberg. And understanding what's lurking beneath the surface, well, that's the key to this entire market.
So to even begin to answer that question about price, we have to know what we're talking about. I mean, what makes these metals so precious? Let's meet the big four and build our foundation right here. First up, you've got the undisputed king, gold. For thousands of years, this has been the ultimate store of value. It's what central banks stack in their vaults and what savvy investors turn to when they want to preserve their wealth for the long run.
Next up, silver. Now this one's fascinating because it has a split personality. On one hand, it acts like money, a store of wealth just like gold. But on the other, it's a vital industrial metal that you need for everything from your smartphone to solar panels.
Then there's platinum, a true industrial powerhouse. It's actually rarer than gold, and its price is really tied to the health of the global economy, especially the car industry, where it's absolutely essential for catalytic converters.
And finally, we've got palladium. This is the rarest and by far the most volatile of the bunch. Its price can go on some absolutely wild swings based on really specific things like car manufacturing numbers and the mining supply, which comes from just a few countries.
So what's the common thread here? Why do we care about them? Well, it's this powerful mix of things. They're naturally rare. They've been used as real money for centuries. They're a safe place to run to in a crisis, and our modern world literally needs them to function. That's what gives them real, lasting value.
Okay, now for the big reveal. We've talked about why these metals are valuable, but that price you see on your screen, that's not the whole story. Not even close. It's kind of like a magic trick, and we are about to show you how it's done. This quote really just says it all, doesn't it? The market has a secret, and it's this. The price is way more complicated and, frankly, way more interesting than it looks on the surface.
And this slide breaks down that illusion perfectly. So on the left, you have the spot price. Just think of that as the price in the paper market. It's for digital contracts that almost never result in actual metal changing hands. But on the right, you have the physical price. That's the real-world cost to actually buy a coin or a bar and hold it in your hand.
And here's why you have to understand that difference. When a crisis hits and everyone suddenly loses faith in paper promises and wants the real thing, that gap between the two prices can absolutely explode. Premiums for physical metal can skyrocket, sometimes 30, 40, even 50% above that spot price.
And please, don't think this is just some abstract theory. This disconnect is real, and it's actively manipulated. In 2020, JP Morgan got slapped with a fine of nearly $1 billion for rigging these very markets. This is the game being played.
Okay, so we get the pricing game now. Let's move on and look at the actual tools in your toolkit. The different ways you can own precious metals. And trust me, each one serves a very different purpose. This table lays it all out. At the top, you've got physical metal. It's the ultimate insurance policy, but you have to figure out how to store it safely. Then there are ETFs, super easy to trade in your brokerage account, but you don't actually own the metal. Then for the pros, you have futures contracts for high leverage bets, but the risk of losing everything is very, very real. And finally, there are new tokenized options for 24/7 trading. As you can see, the right tool really depends on your goal. All right, so you've got your toolkit. Now you have to decide what you want to build with it. And generally speaking, there are two main paths you can take: the path of the long-term investor or the path of the short-term trader. So the long-term investor, they are not trying to get rich quick. They're treating precious metals like financial insurance. They might use an allocation that looks something like this to build a foundation that's designed to preserve wealth for decades.
And their main technique is all about discipline. It's called dollar cost averaging. It's a simple but really powerful method where you just make regular, scheduled purchases. It takes all the emotion out of it and saves you from the impossible task of trying to time the market perfectly.
The trader, on the other hand, is playing a completely different game. Their goal is to make a profit from short-term price swings. They are glued to the charts, and they live and breathe by key indicators like the ones you see here. They're watching real interest rates, they're watching the US dollar, they're analyzing every inflation report. It's a very active, high-stakes approach.
So, we've defined the metals, we've exposed the price illusion, and we've explored the two different paths. Now let's bring it all home and talk about what this means for you.
So here it is. This is the most important takeaway from all of this. It doesn't matter if you're a long-term investor or an active trader. Your single most valuable asset is understanding how this system actually works. The price illusion, the different tools, the games that are played. That knowledge, that is your real foundation.
So, I'll just leave you with this question to think about. Now that you can see behind the curtain, take a good, hard look at your own strategy. Is your financial house built on solid ground? Thanks for watching.